going to move into the Union Affairs Officers' interviews.
Union Development Officer. The Union Development Officer leads on events and activities in on-campus venues, guides the union's sustain.
Hello, I'm James, and I'm currently joined in the studio by Jacob Boneham, who is running for the position of Union Affairs Officer. So, Jacob, a big part of your campaign is that you want to better integrate our campus with bus routes that work for students. In your own words, could you briefly explain what the issues with the current bus routes are?
Well, thank you, James, for introducing me. My big concern is about equity. The current bus system only seems to benefit Campus East students in the evening. You try and get a bus from Campus West to town, they're either too full or they just drive straight past you. I think this is completely unfair and it should not be allowed to continue. So if elected Union Affairs Officer, I would meet with First Bus to establish an evening bus route starting on West Campus going straight into town. And I'd also look to integrate Halifax College better into the bus route network because right now there is no existing bus routes.
So I think that's very interesting what you said about Halifax College, because a lot of students do feel that Halifax isn't served properly by the existing bus routes. Although another issue students are having with the bus routes is that the ticket prices for the campus student tickets are raising annually at the moment. Do you think there's a risk that this policy, or if this went through, could increase the fares for buses for students?
Well, absolutely, James. I think the cost of living crisis is really affecting all of us. I was a big supporter of the free travel between campus a couple of years ago, and I think it's a real shame that certain students abused this policy, and we no longer have it. So if I was to be elected, I would look to renegotiate this and bring it back.
So we do currently have free travel between campus with the on and off system. So that is good.
Fantastic.
Okay. Going to move on now, because you have written in your manifesto that you want to reinvigorate campus culture, giving student bars a defined identity. That's your own words. What are, in your mind, the issues currently with our existing campus venues?
This is a very interesting question. I was at Courtyard the other night, and they did not show the England game. That is missed revenue, in my opinion. The way we get people into the bars is by offering entertainment, affordable pints, and good culture. Right now, we are not offering any of those. I was told by representatives from student bars that they recommend students go to the Charles 12 instead of stay on campus in order to get cheaper pints and a better atmosphere. I do think that should be allowed to continue.
So what specifically would you do to improve the identity of our campus bars at the moment?
I've met with many sports societies, including pool and snooker, to discuss ways we'd do this. I would want to create a dedicated sports and games bar. This would probably be D-Bar. I think we are underutilising at the moment, and it's very cost inefficient to keep it open and not put anyone in there. There's staffing problems. What we need to do is... I don't believe D-Bar is open at the moment. No, it's not. And opening it is a significant cost. So what I'd like to do is I want to move all the pool tables in there. I know there's assets in lounge that are not available to be used by Pool Society. I'd move it into D-Bar, and we'd make that the dedicated bar for games and sports.
So one issue I do have is the Students' Union makes it quite clear in their election guidance that the responsibility for campus bars falls under the remit of the Union Development Officer. How are you going to push for this idea without interfering with the work of your fellow sabbatical officers?
Well, regardless of who is elected, I think plenty of the candidates have a very similar vision. I think they want to do the best for campus bars. But Union Affairs is one of the most senior roles, and I would seek to cooperate with anyone who is elected to the Union Development position.
Do you not think students might worry that if you're spending your time as a Union Affairs Officer pushing for campus bar identity, while there is a designated position designed to do that, you could neglect your prime purpose and your main responsibilities as a Union Affairs Officer?
Well, I don't think that at all, no. I think a lot of this has to do with the rebranding of USU into York SU. We had clearly defined positions of student president, and now we have two different positions of Union Affairs and Union Development. I canvassed plenty of students over my election campaign, and the vast majority of them cannot tell me what the difference is. So I would seek to clarify what the positions are, and I know USU...
So they do clarify this in the in the guidance they put out for the election, the first sentence of the description of Union Development Officer is, the Union Development Officer leads on events and activity in on-campus venues. I don't see how much clearer they can make it.
It's not clearer. They can make it as clear as they want. It's the fact that it's not communicated effectively to students. That they are using archaic methods such as email to publish their methods. Let's capitalise on social media and publish it that way.
Okay. I'll move on to your final manifesto point before we get into communication, because this is something that is important to a lot of students and it's being talked about a lot, and it's student safety. You've made it clear in your campaign and your manifesto that you believe that York's approach to campus safety is inadequate, and you intend to renegotiate the York Party's contract to guarantee the safety of students. I want to ask you, what issues are there with the current contract, and what would you change to prioritise safety?
I think the main issue about the current contract is we don't know what's in it. There are very few people on campus who seem to know the specific contents of this contract. If elected, I would make it very clear that this cannot continue. We need clarity on the issue.
So if you don't know what's in it, how do you know that there's issues with it?
I have met with representatives from York parties at the roundtable discussion the other week, and they are committed to change. But the problem is that we are obligated to go to these venues. The main issue at the moment is obviously spiking. That is a fairly universal issue, and it's going to happen everywhere, including on campus. But the issue that I take most personal grievance is the third-party hiring of nightclub door staff. They aren't properly vetted. They're usually brought in at very short notice, and this prioritises financial benefit over student well-being, and I don't think that should be allowed to continue.
Okay. So we'll move on to communication. During debate night and on your Instagram, you made it very clear that you do think that the student union is being inadequate in how they're communicating with students. What would you do to improve communication?
I think we need to move away from these emails that are long-winded and are notoriously not read by the vast majority of students. I'm sure many of you have seen my social media campaign. I'm confident how to use social media. I know how to publish things that people will see. I think the Students' Union and all sabbatical officers, regardless of who wins this election, need to capitalise more on social media.
So I do think that's interesting because while you have had a, in your words, successful social media campaign leading into this election, do you think that the things on your social media, things like taping a Foster's can to your head, sitting in a bath, do you think these things are appropriate for communicating important issues and important union business to students?
I think so, yes. It's about being visible, about being seen, and if that's how it happens, so be it.
And so you do think that this is how you would want, with these sort of comedic-based posts, this is how you'd want to communicate with students?
I don't think it's how I want to communicate with students once elected. I think this is very beneficial during the campaign period. During the campaign, you want to be seen. You want to be seen on campus, making a stand with students. And I'm afraid that's the nature of politics and elections. The most visible candidate tends to win. So these stunts are to gain visibility and to campaign on issues that are very close to my heart and I think students will care about.
Because I have looked at your Instagram, and I do think that there is the worry that while you are being quite comedic, and I think this is an appropriate tone for discussing things like bus routes and campus bar identity, do you worry that it's maybe a bit inappropriate when discussing things like student safety, which is a real issue, a really scary issue for a lot of students at the moment?
Well, I think it all needs to be taken in context. It absolutely is a scary issue, and I am steadfast in my support for reforming student nightlife, and I think I am the most outspoken candidate on safety. So if that's the medium I want to go through, that's the medium I will choose. Okay.
So one final question. What would you do to promote diversity and inclusion within the Students' Union and across campus?
Well, I spoke about this earlier. I think the positions of well-being and inclusivity, I don't know what the difference is between them. So I would potentially seek to revise how we look at them. But across campus, I think every student needs to have the opportunity to stand for society support.
Sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you. Thank you so much, Jacob.
Thank you very much,
It's been an absolute pleasure to have on. And we are going to have to throw you now to Tolan Enterby, who is interviewing Woody Callis-Ross.